Welcome to Disengaged, the podcast. I'm Leah Harding, your host. So back when I was engaged, I was actually planning two weddings, one in the UK and one in the United States. And honestly, it was a disaster. I hated planning weddings. I hated all of the details that went into it. My fiance, he was all about it. He was loving it. But that was part of the reason that I knew that this might not be the right thing, is because I hated every single bit of it. But I love planning other kinds of parties. I'm really glad, A, that I called it off, but B, that we were able to get out a lot of these contracts, which a lot of people weren't able to do. Today on the pod, we have a special guest, Shane McMurray. He's the founder and CEO of The Wedding Report, a leading research company providing data and insights on the wedding industry. With over 600,000 survey samples collected since 2005, his work helps couples and professionals make informed decisions. His expertise has been featured in major outlets like the New York Times, Forbes, and CNN, where I found him. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Disengaged. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Great to meet you.
All the way from Arizona. It was snowing here last week in New York, and now it's
Wow.
like 80 degrees. So at least it's probably more consistent where you are.
We've already hit 100 this year so far. So it's supposed to be in the 90s this week. So
Wow. Well, I'm from Florida and lived in Qatar for a while, so I don't miss the triple digit situation. My heart goes out
yeah,
to you.
but it's a dry heat. They always say it actually is not too bad, but yeah,
Okay, so just to
yeah.
get started, I mean, I was reading some of your content online, different interviews that you did, and this one question kept not nagging at me. How in the world did you get into the wedding industry in the way that you do as a wedding reporter?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. My wife and I, basically, when we got married, she wanted to make her own wedding invitations. So we figured out how to make handmade paper, and that's really how the whole thing started. We started a paper company, making paper from scratch, the pulp and everything. And then I needed data for our marketing and try and figure out where's the market. But I felt like if we needed this, other people would need this information. And so I started a blog and tried to provide some business stuff. Did my first research publication in July of 2005. So literally, it will be 20 years coming up here. And it took off. People just were like, wow, this is great. Like I was, so it was an interesting thing. And so since that time and the interest in it, I actually built a company around it, and I incorporated in 2007. So I've been doing research for well over 20 years in this space.
That's incredible. I mean, I love the backstory for how people do these things. So, what would you say is a trend that you're seeing now that's really shocking to you?
I don't know if it's shocking, but I mean, in general, society's changed how, whether they want to get married or not. I think that's probably the biggest trend that's happening now is that um, the number of people getting married is declining, and it's continuing to decline. It's been declining since 1984, and it just continues to go down. It's pretty flat right now, but I think people are just not interested in the institution of marriage, or however you want to describe it. They're just not, I mean, do they want to build families and um, build wealth together? I think they do. I mean, you see a lot of cohabitation, people living together, but I think the marriage part of it is the thing that I think some people struggle with. I don't know if it's the commitment. I don't know if they see, well, Gen Z pretty much doesn't see much value in the institution of marriage itself, but the cohabitation part is something they care about.
Are there like tips and tricks that you have that help people save money in this process?
People that actually have a lot of guests spend more money on everything. So if you want to have a smaller wedding, probably a smart, if you want, especially if you want to save money, right? That's one way to do it. The other thing you can do is look at your friend circle, right? Try and find people in your friend circle that can help you and do stuff for you. When we got married, my wife and I got married, we basically, and this was back in 2001. My wife is Mexican and she has a huge family. They would not let us do the food. They would not let us do the alcohol. And so we didn't even have to pay for that because they wanted to do that. And so that's, depending on your family and your friend circle, right, they're probably going to want to take care of that for you. That happens a lot. So that's another way that you can look at, oh, well, maybe we don't have to put the money out for that. And then just depending on where you want to get married, maybe set your expectations a little bit lower, right? Use the, I don't know, $30,000 is a lot of money to spend on a wedding and an event. And if you have it and you want to spend it and you want that kind of event, more power to you. But if you really are thinking about how's that going to affect you later, maybe you need that money for something else, maybe look at it differently and go, hey, how do we cut the guest count? Maybe we don't get married at the best place in town. Maybe, maybe we look at what we're hiring for services and, and all the other stuff. You just got to look at everything you want and figure out, do you really need that or want that? And then go from there.
I do see some of my friends, especially on social media or I know in the real world, who don't have the means to be throwing such an elaborate wedding. Like it
Yeah.
boggles my mind. At least they don't outwardly have that. Maybe they're you know that they have multiple children or are struggling
Mhm.
financially or have been even vocal about struggling financially. Do you feel like the wedding industry has a target on middle to lower class couples to try to get them to live outside of their means?
Now, I think it happens in any type of marketing at all, right? Because if you look at any industry, the let's take apparel, right? Apparel wants you to live outside your means, right? They want you to buy, I mean, literally how many things do you need to buy, right? Sweaters, shirts, pants, shoes, you name it, purses. Same thing with the vehicle industry, right? I mean, look at all the commercials you see about these luxury cars and this awesome lifestyle that you're going to have if you have this luxury car, right? I mean, it's the same with any industry. I think generally, I mean, yes, I don't know if it's really targeting specifically people that are in a different income bracket. It's presenting hey, this is a glamorous, beautiful thing, and the industry does it to themselves. They basically, yes, this is everything is a luxury wedding, and everyone spends 50, 70, $80,000 on a wedding. Which is not true, but that's the vision they present this thing, and that's what a lot of companies do when they market. They present this thing, and then that either pulls people up into that piece of the market, or they don't, right? Like you either, so, okay, well, I can't really afford a Kate Spade purse, but I really want one. So guess what? I'm going to go buy one anyway, right? I mean, this is what happens in marketing in general. So yeah, I think everyone's doing that.
Maybe that's just a reason for people to hate on nicer weddings. They're like, ah, it won't last as long.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if I had to think about, just from a divorce perspective, I think some of the cultural things might have to do with like why people might stay together longer. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. It's interesting
What do you
though. That
mean
would
with
be
staying
interesting to
together
know.
longer?
Well, different cultures probably will stay together longer, right? So someone who's maybe an Asian marriage, their culture is that, you get married, you stay together forever, right? Or same thing with Mexican culture. My wife's parents, they were together for almost 60 years till the dad passed away. So I mean, it's just one of those things. Me being a white person, I was together with my first wife for 10 years and that was it. I was done after the first couple of years, but the reality is that's what, I don't know. And
Yeah.
we didn't spend any money on the wedding. I think we had that first marriage was basically we had a JP come to the apartment. We got married and we had a cake and that was it. I think my mom was there and that was it.
I
So,
would love to know though if there's like a happy medium between not spending anything. You could argue, if you don't invest in something, then like are you valuing it? I've heard this argument before. Like, no, you have to do something to market. But I wonder if there's a money value, a connection with how long your marriage is going to last, making it
well,
seem like a bigger thing than it is. Let's throw a bunch of cash at it and like impress people versus I don't actually care about this, but we need to do it. She's pregnant or something like
mhm.
that. Like just do the deed,
Yeah, I
you know.
mean, there's a lot of dynamics, right? Isn't like I think money is probably one of the biggest things that people argue about. I mean, I've heard some stats on this. Maybe one of the biggest reasons people get divorced as well. Um, so I would imagine the money situation has a lot to do with it. So if, if there's a lot of stress, like we went into debt to get married, we spent a lot of money on this wedding, we really couldn't afford it, and then you're getting married, you're in this huge amount of debt already, and I could see that causing a lot of stressors. Yeah, for sure.
Well, a big part of my breakup with my then fiance was we had to literally meet like two or three times and unplan these two weddings, which that's like a great thing to do after you've broken up with someone. You're like, great, now we have to like literally unplan all of this. And just the
Mhm.
time and the money that went into that and like how hard it is to unplan a wedding because they really sink their teeth into you. You
Yeah.
start
Well, you've got
doing one
deposits you
thing.
put down, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And then, you put on a deposit for a location and then you're doing all the little deposits for the chairs and the flowers and the food and the legality of getting out
Mhm.
of it is just a complete headache. But I think we were at about 20,000 because he paid for most of it. So part of our breakup was, okay, we got to split the wedding costs. So I think I sent him about
Yeah.
10K, but it's crazy what
Mhm.
people spend. It really is, especially to
Well,
go
yeah,
into
and,
debt
and
for
if
it.
you're in a contract, yeah, yeah, yeah. And most vendors, you're in a contract, right? So if you cancel the contract, you're still you might still be on the hook, depending on the contract, to pay the balance of the fees, right? Because they've already booked that day. They may or may not be able to book another person in, right? That sort of thing. All those things happen, right? So yeah, could totally see it happening.
Do you find that people spend less on their second wedding in a sense that, you get married the first time and you think this is going to be it, I don't need to budget for a second wedding. And so when the second one rolls around, you're like, well, I've already done it once. And what's
It,
what's the big deal here? Let's
yeah,
just
yeah. That's a great question. I think it depends on how old you are when you get married a second time. So if you're more established and you've been able to work your career and generate more wealth, then you probably are going to spend more. And I see that in some of the numbers for older couples that are getting married. They actually end up spending more, and it might be the first time for one, or it might be second time for both. It just varies, but I see that happening. Yeah. Um, Not always necessarily true. It depends on when their second time marriage is, right? Like, I mean, I spent more on my second marriage, but I didn't spend a lot on my first marriage, so it'd be really hard not to spend more on my second marriage, not to spend more on the second marriage. So,
your second wedding, you're just like, we're not even going to have a cake. I'm going to spend less than my first wedding. Right.
so
And people
yeah,
are
that
getting married a
happens.
lot older, right? Like you were saying, for in your case as well.
There are now 40-year-olds living with their parents, and they're not even married. They're still living with their parents, right? So this is what's happening now too. Right? You've got a lot of these older people not even thinking about getting married. And I was reading something about like the latest, like some of the younger men aren't really working, kind of thinking about careers and stuff like that. And when the younger women are looking at these men, they're looking at them as it's non-negotiable for a relationship, right? Like I don't want that as a relationship because they have no motivation. I don't want to sit watching them playing games all day, et cetera, whatever, right? Whatever those are. But that is not what women want. They want someone who's going to be a good partner, motivation. It's a commitment together. So yeah, I mean that's got to happen. So I don't know. I think the dynamics have changed completely,
Well, and women mature faster as kids. And then I just
way
think,
faster.
right, my whole like litmus test for dating guys for a while is they need to be 6 years older because then they're going to be my equal. Because there seems to be this delay in like the male psyche or something akin to what you're saying is
Yep.
you're like, get your act together.
Yep.
I'm not here to train you. And a lot of them are really close to their moms because they did live at home longer or
Hmm.
didn't have the support that they needed. I don't know what it is, but I do think from my own personal experience, I completely agree with you that Men
Yeah, that's
aren't
totally,
stepping up. So why would you marry them when they're 25, 26?
that's right. Yeah, or at all, right? Because if they never learn the lesson, and they're still 40 years old and they're still doing the same things, then yeah, they're not a candidate at all, right? For a relationship. I mean, maybe for someone. I mean, I would hope that everyone would find love and whatnot at some point in their life, right? I mean, that would be ideal, but maybe it's not in the cards for everyone.
Right. Unless you're tall. One of the last episodes I did was called Are Tall Men Toxic? And because taller men, according to this one psychologist that I interviewed, they get away with more just because they're more desired, if you will, in society. So they can get away with a lot more. And so I think that kind of perpetuates the problem altogether is not only are they not stepping up to the plate, but then they maybe never have to. Yeah. Short kings are
Yeah.
winning. More short kings will be getting married in the future, is my guess.
Maybe,
Uh,
maybe not.
so what
Depends on if they're a good partner or not, right? Like that's really what it boils down to.
it's true. Do you do study on what makes a partner most desirable for them to get married?
There's a couple of good studies that have been done around marriage, and one of them is it used to be from the University of Virginia. I think it's a different group now, but they've done since like 2008. Every couple of years, they do this study on marriage, and they will, kind of figure out the dynamics and what people care about. Um, and some really good information in there. And the last one they did that I read, it was from 2022, was basically I was trying to figure out. So, we've got the end of the millennials, which is the largest generation in our history, right? Kind of moving through that core wedding age. The youngest one is 27, 28, right? And then you've got Gen Z. And so Gen Z is already starting to move into the marriage age. But I was trying to figure out, okay, well, we've got this huge population that's in the marriage dynamic core age right now, but they're not getting married. Like you would think, like when I first started this project, a lot of the media companies are not Condé Nast and all them were saying there's going to be this huge explosion of people getting married because the millennial generation is huge, right? And I'm thinking, okay, let's see. I don't know. I don't think that's real, but let's see what happens, right? Look at any society outside the United States, like you're any place in Europe. You look at the UK, even though they've been around for thousands of years, the marriage rates have not exploded because of a generational change. So, but all right, cool. Let's play this game. Let's see what happens. And so that didn't pan out. And so if that didn't pan out, then what happens to the Gen Z generation, which is a much smaller generation as they start to move into the core marriage age? What happens? Do they decide they want to get married? Do they decide they don't want to get married? And then what happens to the marriage rate at that point, right? Because right now we're at 2 million. Does that go down to 1.6 and that is the norm? I don't know. So I was looking, that study actually talks about the younger generation, and the bottom line is that Gen Z sees zero value in marriage. And if they see zero value in marriage, then what does that mean for the marriage rate in the future? So will people get married? Yes, they will still get married, but will the numbers grow? I doubt it. Will they decline? More than likely. Like one of the arguments for marriage was, okay, well, you get married, you build more wealth together because, as a couple, you buy a house, you buy cars, you buy insurance and this and that, and then you build wealth together. But that's already happening for couples that are living together. I know people in our family that they have 4 kids. They're living together. They own a home together. They own vehicles together. They own investments together. But they are not married. If you're not married and you have a
Right.
partner, and unless you have some legal documentation in place, there's nothing that partner can do, right? Like that's it, right? There's stuff that just your stuff may go away. The state may get it, and you may have to go through probate, kind of things, unless you have legal stuff, a trust and things like that in place. So there's ways to protect yourself, but still, right? Unless without the marriage, plus you don't get the tax benefits for being married. You get married, you get a tax benefit for being married, right? So there are advantages and disadvantages. But there's also it's a lot harder to get out of that commitment once you're there, right? So you're there, you're in the commitment, but if you ever want to escape that commitment, right, then there's a price to pay to get out of that commitment. It's not easy, right? You've got a lot of things to think about.
I know one of the reasons for me getting engaged was because of the influence of the church. I was in a very conservative circle, and there was very much a push of if you are dating, if you're engaged for even just a few months, it's time to do the thing, like it's time to get married. And that religious
Mm-hmm.
push was so strong. And it was a reason that I stayed in the engagement really for as long as I did. But something about it just didn't sit right with me, which is why I ultimately ended up ending it. But I also wonder, as fewer people are in organized religion, especially in the United States, how that
Mm-hmm.
push will also start to decline.
We've become a society where we've become more open about our feelings. We've become more open about different things like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, very mainstream religion was a big deal. That's since changed. There's a lot of people doing things that they want to do and being more open about it. And society's accepted these things as being okay. And I think that's also had some play in it, right?
Absolutely. And if you feel the pressure and you're not wanting to get married, then really for a lot of people the only solution is to leave that institution.
Leave the institution, leave the environment, right? That's the only solution. Yeah, for sure.
And if you stay in that institution and stay in that environment and get married, then you have children. Arguably, you raise them in that environment, and it's good for the institution. So it's this quid pro quo, if you will.
You've been dating for 2 months now. You should be getting engaged by now. No
There's a
kidding.
lot of that. I mean, I fell victim to it, even though my
Yeah.
family were like, "Don't do it. This is not a good situation." But my inner religious circle was so loud and so influential that I felt I had no other choice.
I mean, I think the good thing about today's society, like I said, there's a lot more people willing to listen and to different points of view, right? And be more open-minded about what's really happening in our world and not be so closed-minded and oh, it's got to be like this. It's black and white. Well, no, it's not really black and white. There's a little gray. There's actually a lot of gray happening all around us, but it's not black and white. So yeah,
It's true. There's a great Instagram account called God is Gray talking about that as well. It's not so black and white as we make it seem. And marriage
yeah.
certainly falls under that category. I have to ask one thing just because this is a post-engagement podcast. Do you see people staying, ending engagements? Do you do any research on that or have intel
I've
about?
done a little bit of research. Yeah, I mean, if there's roughly 2 million people a year to get married, and the planning cycle is between 12 and 18 months, then yeah, there's probably between 2.7 and 3.1 million people in that pool at any given time. But about 2 or 3%, I think it was maybe 3% into the engagement. I asked, yeah, it was interesting. Someone else had asked me that, and it was it was a news outlet or something. Hey, do you have any stats on this? I go, no, but that's a great question. Let me go ask.
I think my whole thing, my little thesis statement is we don't know that many people who've ended engagements, but we know how many people who've had a divorce. Shouldn't those numbers be switched?
The CDC, which is the Center for Disease Control, is responsible for vital stats in the US. Death, birth, marriage, and divorce are all vital stats. And marriage and divorce have become less, I don't know, less important to capture and quantify versus death and birth.
Well, one of the things before we close here is when I was engaged, one of the two main things that kept me in the engagement for as long as it did, aside from my own indecision and confusion and fear, was the church, which we discussed, and then also this influence from the wedding industry that like it's just cold feet, just hang in there. This is totally normal. And it felt like this giant institution from the religious and marketing side were saying it's all going to be okay. Like the marketing gods were like, chill out, just, buy the bouquet, keep planning the wedding, and everything's going to be fine. And I believed that narrative until I couldn't sleep at night and was like, no, I have to make my own decision here. And I just,
Yeah.
the power of the wedding industry is just so great.
Well, they're playing on, I mean, essentially, I mean, it's marketing, but you're playing on someone's emotions when it comes to an important part of their life, right? Like this is a huge event in your life. So it becomes different dynamic for marketing than if you were just to go, oh, I'm going to go buy a car, right? Or I'm going to buy a whatever, even buy a house, right? There's a different dynamic with I'm making this huge commitment to, become a partner with this other person. And it's a big deal, right? We're having this huge event. We've already sent out invitations, and yeah, it's just, yeah, of course. So yeah, they're going to play right on that sympathy of that and try and pull you in and get you to spend more money, just like any smart marketing person would do. Yeah. Have you bought a new car lately? You go to the car, you find the car you want, you go in there, next thing you know, the car's 20, I'm just throwing this number out there. Car's 50,000. You go in, you sit down with the finance guy, next thing you walk out and you spend $65,000 on warranties and this and that. And oh yeah, yes, that's exactly same thing.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming on and having this chat. Your work is very widespread and influential itself, so it's fun having you on the pod.
Thank you. Yeah. Glad to be on. If you have any other questions or whatever, just feel free to reach out.
This episode was produced by the Anthology Group.